Thank you so much. And moving on to our next session, the Fireside Chat on giving our emerging tech talent pool an edge. In this session, we explore strategies and insights to empower our next generation of tech leaders. And for this Fire Chat, we have with us Shri Ashank Desai. He is the founder and chairman of Mastek and is widely recognized as an IT industry veteran and is a founder, member, and former chairman of Nasscom. He has also been the president of Asian Oceanic Computing Industry Organization, a federation organized by ICT associations representing 24 economies of the Asia Pacific region. He has also been felicitated by the Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi for his contribution to Nasscom and the IT industry. May I welcome Shri Ashank Desai. Our second panelist, Dr. Neha Berlia, co-founder and pro-chancellor, Apeejay Satya University. Dr. Berlia is the co-promoter and member of the senior management board of Apeejay Satya and Sovereign Group, an international conglomerate of businesses with major interests in education, pharmaceuticals, life sciences, and real estate. Dr. Berlia has held several leadership roles in industry bodies, including the co-chair of Education Committee of the PhD Chamber of Commerce and as the co-chair of ASSOCHAM National Council on Real Estate and Urban Development. Let me welcome Dr. Neha Berlia. And the session will be moderated by Prabhu Ram, Head Industry Intelligence Group, CyberMedia Research. As head of the Industry Intelligence Group at CMR, Prabhu Ram advises industry participants on the dynamic technology market in India and other Asian geographies through proprietary and custom technology research cutting across technology domains. Prabhu oversees an analyst team that tracks smartphones, data cards, tablets, storage, display, wearables, and smart homes. Over to you, Prabhu.
Thank you so much. You can hear me now? Brilliant. Thank you so much for the opportunity here. I really appreciate this. We are going to talk about the emerging technology talent pool. One of the things is, as an analyst, I get to answer questions all of the time, and now we are living in an interesting time where we have tools that give us lots and lots of different answers, right? If you look at ChatGPT or Gemini, for instance, they remind me of my pre-teens, So I have two daughters who are always giving me answers, who are always telling me I'm wrong, and I have no other option but to listen to them, But from an analyst hat, I can tell you that at CyberMedia Research and with CyberMedia, we do track this particular theme very closely. When we talk about the talent pool as it is, we know that over the last couple of years, the T-School survey that we do, that has given some strong trends in terms of how the youth is preparing for the skilling and so on. How the T-Schools are equipping them with all of the talent and IP that they need. And Apeejay is also at the forefront of that. The other part of that is the industry part of it, right? We see that there is a lot of challenge which comes in terms of getting the right talent on board, getting talent that can learn, unlearn, and relearn, in an age of disruption. And there have been a lot of headwinds over the last couple of years, right? You had the pandemic, and then you had what I just spoke about, AI coming in, and which of all is really forcing enterprises as well as academia to really reshape the way we look at things. So if I could just kick off with Ashank, just about the last 2 to 3 years, what has happened, the pandemic and AI revolution upon us all of a sudden, So how do you see these trends shaping the industry and the talent needs as it is? Yeah.
Thanks to be here. I think this is what, 30th or 31st? 31st, yeah. Okay. Great to see this institution. I've seen it all these years. I have been in IT industry. So it's great to speak here. So that that I would, there are a lot of things have changed, but I think there are two or three significant changes which are important, which we should be aware, because it has an impact on the discussion we are going to have. One is this whole change in technology and the speed of technology. I'll not get again into details. We all know about it, but the speed has changed. The acceleration has changed. The application that is being used of AI, for example, or even non-AI, has penetrated our nation and society. You see everybody using UPI for doing money transfer. You see demat accounts held by even people who are that way not non-tax paying. You see the tax paying number is much smaller than demat accounts. So there must be some large number of. So all of that is technology and the change in society and change in the way. So that's the acceleration in change is really has a significance. Number two is the nature of learning probably has changed in a way. The physical side of education, physical side of sitting across the table and learning got suddenly changed because everybody figured out that you could do a lot of things without meeting. That is a pandemic part of it, which kind of created a situation which otherwise should have happened automatically. But always the crisis ends up into creating new opportunities. So that is the second part. The nature of how we learn, how we understand the things has changed or accelerated again because of technology, yes, but it became a social phenomena. So that's the second point. The third point is, which is a positive side, is suddenly India has become a major force. Not that it was less earlier, but there are some things have happened in geopolitical scenario. There is this China plus one theory. There is the whole issue of uh, geopolitical situation where India is suddenly moved up in the ranks. And that has created some opportunities which were unavailable earlier in some form. So these three things are really, to my mind, have a significance in terms of how we will shape the future. So I'll stop here.
And that's a good context setting as such in terms of where we are looking at things as such. If I could come to you, Dr. Berlia, I spoke about and we spoke at length about how things are changing. More or less, all of the answers are available on these AI tools that I spoke about, right? And more or less, you always get proven wrong again and again. If you were to look back, just last week, Jensen Huang was talking about how the AI systems of tomorrow would be much more advanced than what's available today. In 5 years' time, he's saying they will be able to pass all of the tests that humans take, including advanced medical practitioner exams as such. So that's the level of change we are talking about. If I were to look closer home, I spoke about my preteens. They spend a lot of time on even on the metaverse, which I thought was dead. As an analyst, I keep saying it's dead, but I've been proven wrong again and again. They are more or less spending time on Roblox, almost close to 6 hours a day, where they meet in a virtual world altogether. So that's what we are dealing with. There is this generation alpha, which is what I term as the AI native, and then there's the current talent pool, which needs to learn, relearn, and unlearn. And then there's this emerging talent pool. Let's talk about your perspective in terms of from K-12 onwards. What is that we can do to equip the students and to use all of this and emerge strongly?
I think, so I would like to, so we run a large number of education institutions all across the country. And I think I would like to start my response with the pandemic. And why I bring up the pandemic is because that really taught us that use of technology is key. And for us, I think we at Apeejay, we've been adopting technology far before a lot of the others. In fact, we've been doing online courses, lots of things way before than people thought about them. But what it really taught us was the importance of adopting processes, systems which are tech-based. And we've been doing that, and that's what has helped us in this whole journey during the pandemic. With our employees, they one day they show up to work, they don't show up to work. And then you're still managing the salaries, you're still managing the payments, you still have to pay. We paid everyone, in the pandemic fully on time. And it was a challenge to do that, but we were able to do that because of the processes and systems as well as tech which we were using. Now, coming to the question which was just raised about AI. So I do feel that while AI is really growing, and I think it has really created a whole, subset of knowledge which didn't exist earlier. We had Google and we had so many ways to update ourselves. But today, just go on to a chatbot and you write anything, you get a response. Now, what does it mean for students? For students, it means that they don't really have to work hard. They get all the responses on one hand. Because what happens is they can just go on a platform. When we were younger, we had to go and, log tables I was talking about, where we had to go on that book and do that. And for a maths question, you really had to think what is going on. Today, a student goes at home. He doesn't need a teacher. He just goes to Google. He goes to chatbot. He can get every answer. So there is a responsibility for educators, I think. There's a responsibility to develop the curriculum in a manner which is suited to this new growing technology. Because I think it's a responsibility for us to realize that how we are going to get this creativity out of the students, how we are going to make sure that we are imparting the education that is needed. So that's where I feel, I think, we need to really start working on. Positive, of course, of AI is that today, if I look at my nephews, 13, I have 2 nephews now, and both of them are far knowledgeable. Like, I couldn't imagine having that knowledge at the level of at 12. They read about everything. They know business practices. They go online. They've already created their own sort of, financial statements and done so many things. So I do feel that while AI is, the growing age, and I think every week there's a change in adaptation of AI, and we've incorporated at Apeejay, we've incorporated AI almost in all our schools, as a class, as a curriculum. But then the responsibility of it is what I feel educators need to think about as well.
Got you. Ashank, if I could come to you from an industry point of view, again, experiential learning is key. Let's keep AI aside. We have seen these kind of technological waves coming in over and over again. When you look at the future talent pool, when you look at how to equip them, experiential learning could be one way of looking at things. What do you see is possible, within that domain, which would make them either industry ready, and have them the skills to go forward as such, on a strong foot.
Okay, so let me, now that we are discussing this whole demographic dividend issue, which has impact to your answer. See, one has to be very conscious that the demographic dividend that we are talking has to be carefully analyzed. That is point number 1. Why I'm saying that is, demographic dividend definition is that your working age population should be more than non-working age population. That's economic number definition. Now, if you do that state by state in our country, you will find that number different for each of the states. It is in the poorest state that your demographic dividend is highest today, because the death rate has gone down, and also the the birth rate has also fallen in all the states. So really, your demographic dividend has to happen, and if industry and nation has to benefit, we have a challenge that we need to take the poorest states and people from there to a different level in terms of education skills, right? That is at one level, which is very, very important to my mind when we talk of demographic dividend as an average for India. That's not the case. So we need a state-by-state approach at a one level. The second point I'm making is industry is struggling, on other hand, to get right number of skilled people. And I'm not talking of IT industry, that is at one level. I'm talking all the industries, engineering, non-engineering. How do we meet their needs when the change is happening so fast? So impose a change on that, which I was talking earlier. So changing in skills required. Today, a mechanical engineering industry today is looking for a guy who operates robots, or a person who operates CNC machines and not just do assembly work. They are not getting it. So on one hand, we have skills shortage. On the other hand, we have a large number of people sitting in poor states awaiting for skills to be done. And how do we put it together? I'll give you an example that we are doing. I'm involved with an organization called Pan IIT Reach for India. I'm one of the founder members. It is an IITians coming together and doing skill development, mostly in the poor states. We work in Jharkhand today. We are now joint venture with Jharkhand government and MP. What we are doing now is, we are seeing that this whole model of skilling has to be integrated with higher education so that people who become welders should have ability to become engineer and PhD. So how we are doing it? We are saying we train high school dropouts to become welder, construction worker, and jobs they are assured. What we want to do, we are going to do, it will take obviously its own time as we move along. After 2 to 3 years experience, the person comes back and we train him in ITI. So he moves one stage above. He finishes ITI in 2 years, goes to industry again, gets credit for that, comes back and joins Polytechnic or a diploma engineering. Once he's in diploma school, his engineering career is done, because if you finish 2 years, he can get into engineering and then he can go to PhD also at some stage. Unless we have this integrated platform, and in India we didn't have that. We have, I said, if you are a skilled labor, you lifetime a skilled labor. Now industry doesn't benefit from that model. Industry also would like to have their people move up the cadre much faster today because of changes that are happening. So we need to create on one hand the academia model, like what I have said. This is one experiment we are doing, hopefully we'll succeed as we move along. And industry is saying to academia that please see that you build people continuously and not give them one-time degree. See, today what I'm saying is, if I have a person who is a good programmer, just to give you an example. Now I want him to be a AI expert. I need lot of academia to do courses around AI. Are we doing that? So the focus moves from just giving degree to changing and improving the existing skills to a different level. So that portion of your work has to be more, rather than just giving a degree. Degree has to be given, obviously. So I'm saying industry is looking for changes in academic scenario in terms of how we impart education. So the point I was making earlier, that the way we learn has changed, should be leveraged by thing. Now, coming back to industry per se, of course, we keep on training our people. All that we do, sorry. We ourselves train a lot of people in industries. 5 to 6% of our budget goes in that. But I think we are not necessarily so well equipped to train people as much as academia is, because of their methods, their infrastructure and so on. So in academia has to learn, go with industry to make it happen. Unless we work together, our demographic dividend will not be materialized. I'm very careful, and we are very weak in that. US is at one level, academia industry collaboration, we are at another level. Now the reasons are many, we are not here to discuss those. And they're from both sides, industry and academia. I'm not saying it is only academia who is responsible for that. Industry also has to take lead. But the point I'm making is this thing has to happen.
So how do you make those synergies happen? What Ashank was mentioning, that's a good point.
Actually, if I answer this from the perspective of our general people working in the office or working, in our industry, I think what we have realized in India, because we also face, like all industry, a lot of us, as Ashankji also mentioned, we have that challenge of hiring talent and making sure that, you keep the talent, and, all that is going on. And I think we all talk about it on coffee, tea, whenever we're sitting around as business owners, that this is a challenge. What we've started to do, and we've been doing and we are also redoing this now in a better way, is by having these skilled courses inside ourselves, inside our institutions itself. So by making sure that when talking about tech, we have our own tech platforms. We're training our own people. So rather than hiring from the market a trained person, which you often find doesn't suit your needs, we're creating our own technical teams to teach. So you're setting up all the skilling within the industry itself. However, of course, it's nicer to have, skilled people coming in from academia. Like if I look at our university and all the courses we offer, we are focusing a lot on internships. We focus a lot on the industry. We have a lot of faculty coming in from the industry to teach. We're also pushing a lot of our faculty to make sure that these students are actually getting that experience. These are things which one can do in academia and the student levels, but I do feel that as an industry right now in India, I think what we've learned, at least, in order to keep our talent, we have to focus a lot on making sure that all people who are coming, whether it's an accountant, whether it's it's an IT person, whether it is someone from an educator, we are having to do our own courses and trainings. In fact, this year itself, we've launched several trainings for our own teachers as well, which are really the Apeejay way of training. And I mean, of course, the other groups also have those, but we're doing it in a manner which is up to our standard. And these are things I think we have to keep doing as industry, where we keep building our own skill sets and we keep sort of training our people. So that is something which I feel, which is like a solution of what we've been doing now.
If I could just add again to the points which you made, like one of the surveys we did last year, this was around modern engineers, and this is the talent which has just entered the workforce. What we are seeing now from a primary research point of view is that they are more aspirational. They are seeking workplaces which are able to support them with continuous learning pathways. And how do we make that? Ashank, you made that point, right? Like that symbiosis has to be there, that synergy has to be there in terms of getting those learning adaptable,
I just wanted to answer, one thing which I felt like I mentioned earlier a little bit was, like, the pandemic taught us, labor people, so we're an old, we're a legacy group, we're 100 plus years old, and my, grandfather started, how it sort of grew like that. And we were several people who refused to use, just even a cell phone. Like when they were 80, directors and things like that. And once the pandemic hit and people realized we have to move, they are fully tech savvy. So, just that shift of change, which was very, very quick, which took place because of COVID. And at that point, now we're finding people are far quicker because they're ready to see a software and they're ready to be like, okay, let's go for it. And this was much harder, pre-pandemic. And I feel that this move has started. So it's not related to just the generation, which is in the 30s to the 50s, but this is also post-generation. For us, we have a lot of people who are above 70 who are still working with us. And I'm finding that some of them are very tech savvy, and those people, if you look at them in 2016, they were not willing to even pick up a cell phone, like a smart cell phone. And so this is a change we are seeing, and I think this is a great change where I feel that adaptability has really gone up. I think people who really want to contribute and learn, they are realizing that that change is the way to go, and they are less scared of that change, and that is something which has been good, and we're promoting that. And I think also the organization and the trainings, I mean, they're more they're more doing it, and sometimes I feel that this generation is actually doing a far better job than some of the younger generation which is coming in, just as in terms of our experience.
And again, Ashank, if you could just jump in on terms of the reskilling and upskilling part of things, with the existing talent force as well as those who are, about to join in. Where do you see us going? What are those prescriptions you could give over the next 5 to 10 years time frame?
So coming back to the theme that I have been saying, as the pace of change is going to increase faster and faster, ability to reskill is going to increase faster and faster. So that's the point number one. At the same time, there are going to be large job opportunities India will have, because India is reaching a stage of growth, as we say, of 6-7%. We should actually do faster than even 7. China did almost 10% for a decade and 5 years, but that's a separate thing. But 7-8% is a very, very big. But that 7 to 8% has a problem of being a jobless growth. Please remember that. Which means that we will not add jobs as fast as we want, because of automation and things like that. So how do we handle this? This is very tricky situation. On one hand, we are saying we need to improve skills fast, we need to train more number of people. On the other hand, there is an economic growth which is happening at a lower increase in the jobs. Now that is something that we will have to think through how to handle this situation at a national level. So that is one point that I'm making. But in the interim, as we move through that transition, the only way we can improve this is to either create an industries which employ large number of these people who are coming out of demographic dividend and are not ready to move higher skills. Now that would require industry transition. And unfortunately, the time has gone to produce toys and other things. I think China has already done that and we are quite behind. Our hope is going in services and large high-tech industry. Now, if we have to create jobs there, then we have to move all the skilled fellows who are at lower level to a higher level. And that, to my mind, is a major issue. And that can only happen if, as I said again, industry and academia work very closely together to see how we can learn from each other. In my industry, of course, as you know, industry always is ahead of academia, we would like to claim, at least in terms of application of technology. Whereas industry is maybe still doing research, IITs in AI, and they may be doing that. But application, we are far ahead. And we find again the same issue that when we get people, we have to train them in many application areas. So all of that is what I'm trying to say again, is it that industry academia collaboration has to be really, really strengthened. And government has a role to play there, according to me. I have been saying for so many years now, at the highest level, that every professor from engineering schools has to spend 1 year after 5 years in industry. Otherwise, he should or she should not get promotion. Make it as a rule at a national level. And if you do that, we will come much closer because then we'll bring those things forcefully happen. So government has also a role to play here. It's not about only industry and academia, I would suggest.
Absolutely, and the point you're making, that's something we have seen as part of the T School survey that we were speaking about earlier. Teach the teacher is what we call it. It's kind of like if we don't equip them with all of the skills that are required, they wouldn't be able to give that into the pedagogy as well. And that's something which you alluded to. When you look at the next 5 to 10 years, purely from an academia point of view, what is that needs to be done more? You are at the forefront of technology adoption within your group. If you could highlight more of that.
I think, depending on what we're talking about, if we're talking about tech and we're talking about AI, we're talking about K-12 or we're talking about higher education. So, the answer would change with difference to what we're talking about. But I think with Ashank, I also agree that, the faculty we are choosing and the kind of faculty we are hiring in terms of higher education, that has a very key role to play. So rather than that, to be very choosy and picky about hiring the right people, to make sure people, like for us, we are very picky about our faculty to make sure that they've worked in the industry, they are in the industry, because students demand that, because they don't want to come to an institute and study or university and study where they feel that they are not, they don't have a future. So everybody wants a job, and the way we can ensure that is to make sure that people who are teaching them and who engage with them will train them for that. And you have the CRC system. So you have like a person who will help them to understand how to give an interview, how to get a job. So even that basic skilling of I would say even like an engineer or an IT person, to know how you apply for a job, what should be on your CV, how do you do an interview, what you should talk about in an interview. These things we are now focusing on quite a bit to make sure that people are hireable. So that I could have a lot of talent, I could be a 90%er, but I don't get a job. And this you see also happening a lot, that in our, like, there are a lot of talent in India, but we don't end up hiring the right ones. So somewhere, that responsibility of academia as well, to not just get students out of their university or, just to give a degree, but rather to make sure that they are actually hireable by doing the requisite amount of training in terms of what you should ask, what should your CV look like, what are you going to talk about, what is your skill set, really preparing for that interview, really delivering, or also that, I would even use the word maturity. Maturity of, between the 20s and the 40s, to see like how long you should work in a job, how, what is your goal, like past progress. It shouldn't be like people like to change jobs in 1 year, but if a CV comes to me where somebody's changed jobs in 1 year, I'm looking at the CM wondering, is he going to stay with me for more than 1 year, and wondering, shall I train this person or not? So these are things which I think the younger generation sometimes does not really understand, that what makes them more employable. So these are things, of course, on the higher ed side to work on. I think on the school front is continuous skilling, continuous training of our teachers, because we're realizing that things are changing. We develop our own textbooks, and we in Apeejay, and we have our own team who sort of does the curriculum on a very regular basis. Keeping in touch, making sure, like we talked about AI, we talked about technology, courses are changing very quickly. Making sure we're adapting. We have the central board by the government, which keeps adapting itself. But even as private school owners ourselves, to make sure that we're not just running by what the government is doing, but doing a little bit of that extra and keeping our private teachers really engaged. So
Absolutely brilliant, both of you. Really appreciate all of the perspectives. The way I would sum this up is, the age of disruption. That's what I started by saying. There's so much to unlearn, relearn, as we move forward. As we move into the future, it's not our education that would define us. The hiring also would change. It's not basis the education background and so on, but rather in terms of what are those talents, skill sets that we have, what are those aptitudes that we have, and that would be very much important, for the talent pool to stay nimble, to continuously learn on the roles as such. I think we have time for maybe a question or two, if there is any.
Anybody for questions?
Hi, Dhaval here. I have a question. There's been a lot of chat when it comes to education in the last few years about NEP, right? And is NEP now helpful for the AI world that we are clearly going to step into? I think that's a question for both.
So, of course, yes, I would say NEP is a good movement towards making that change happen, because they look at the whole cycle of education, right from preschooling, they have defined, which was not part of our overall education policy, to PhDs and research, and how multidisciplinary part of education is going to be very important, which was again a missing place. And tomorrow's world is going to be multidisciplinary engineers at one level rather than just computer experts, because the AI expert has to understand society and mechanical engineering direct together maybe, and so on. So NEP, to answer very quickly, is helping to make that happen. And that's precisely the reason I'm making again, that if for tomorrow's change to be effective, academia, industry, and government have to work together in a synergistic way to make that happen. If we are going to work in silos, we are completely ill-equipped to handle it. And NEP was a good example where government has taken an initiative to make some changes happen. But NEP itself may have to evolve. NEP can't remain static in next 25 years, because their plan obviously is to make change happen over a longer period. But during that time, things are going to change. Are we going to make NEP evolving itself is a question that I would ask government. So the point I'm making here is a constant effort of synergizing is what is needed. And NEP is a good first step.
Thank you so much. Oh, ma'am, please.
I think I would resonate on the same thing, but I think NEP allows the flexibility. So if anything, it's been really good for us because we've been able to do a lot more things because of NEP. I don't think it comes in the way of AI or anything. I think it rather facilitates this holistic approach of education and also pushing forward, what we're trying to do. Education is constantly evolving, and I do feel that, I guess the synergy between the government and private institutions, as well as to allow really for the changes to happen, that of course is a constant sort of, which needs to go on year to year.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, panelists.